When foreigners come here to Calcutta, they see us Anglo-Indians living on the streets and they think we are all drunks and tramps. They don't understand our history. We are the children of mixed marriages from the time of the British. During that period, I am now sorry to have to admit it, we were given to understand that we were superior to the local Indians. Life was one long round of gambling and drinking. But after independence, our lives changed completely, and our privileges in India gradually disappeared. Some Anglo-Indians can't let go of the past, and I guess Morris Jelly was just one of those guys. So, what to do? Morris ended up living amongst the poorest of the poor. But he still saw himself as belonging to a privileged class. He latched onto a white doctor who ran a clinic on the street. But a foreigner would never understand who Morris Jelly was.
Morris, the late Morris Jelly. Morris was Anglo-Indian. He came from Bihar. He came over down here about 30 years ago. That was about the same time that Morris fell off a tram. Anyway, Morris had a big cut on his head from that. Came down to the clinic and eventually ended up with a job. But he was a bungler addict and really knocked off a lot of neurons and didn't have many firing by the time I knew him. He went downhill from there. And, I mean, Morris would just get stoned and it was unbelievable. He'd sit there, gazing into the distance. God is good. God is good. Apple is apple. Huh? Apple is apple. One apple, one God. One apple, one God. And you'd see him just wandering down the street going, one apple, one God. One God, one apple. One apple, one God. Completely out of his brain. I remember one day, he got stoned and he went over the road from the clinic, and there's this little tree there, and he climbed the tree and he just sat on the branch, and just saw these 2 feet hanging down under the greenery. And I looked over about half an hour later, and the branch on which he was sitting had actually separated from the rest of the tree. As a consequence, it had moved to a state of lower potential energy by a factor of about 6 feet. Morris, however, was still sitting on the branch, unawares that the branch was now on the ground, and he had quite a big bruise on his bum. But he was still sitting there, quite happily, literally out of his tree. There's another time he got stoned, disappeared, wandered off, we don't know where he went. And you know those wheelbarrows that the rubbish collectors use around town? And they've got 2 big wheels on the side and a couple of legs at the back. They pick up all the rubbish and they put them in these rectangular wheelbarrows. Morris disappeared, and he was eventually returned to the clinic by one of the rubbish collectors. And there he was, this rubbish collector, wheeling the wheelbarrow down Middleton Road with Morris sitting up in the middle of the rubbish bin going, one apple, one God. One apple, one God. One God, one apple. Absolutely insane. Yeah, he used to have this incredible wardrobe. He used to often pick the eyes out of the donated clothes. He had this incredible wardrobe of Gucci clothes and God knows what else, and Lacoste and so forth that people had given to the clinic. They were all in a filthy state, but he used to wear some incredible combinations of colours and pinks and greens and oranges and what have you. Defies description. The Morris Jelly House of Fashion. We found this enormous sack full of his clothes in the go-down after he died. Remember once monsoon came a couple of years ago. I used to sleep near the corner of Wellesley Street and Royd Street, and the monsoon came. And I said to Morris, Morris, have you got some plastic? He said, no. Why? I said, well, the monsoon's here. He said, aren't you going to want some plastic, to keep yourself dry? And he said, oh, no, I've moved. I said, really? Where are you sleeping now? I said, oh, it was too wet down in Wellesley Street, so I've moved. I'm at the Park Hotel. The Park Hotel. I said, yeah, yes, it makes it sound as if he's got room 332, the Park Hotel. In fact, what he meant, when he says he's sleeping at the Park Hotel, is actually under the awning at the Park Hotel. The day Morris died, I was called to the door of the hotel, and there was this Anglo-Indian chap there. Real down and out from the street, one of Morris's drinking mates. This guy said to me, Doctor, Morris is dead. I said, what? He said, he's dead. He's on Royd Street, he's dead, the body. I said, oh, Jesus. This guy said, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, I don't know. So the first thing I had to do was verify that he was actually dead and this guy wasn't trying to pull a fast one. So I went with him down to Royd Street. And the body was there, lying on the footpath, and his friends from the area had covered the body with a lungi. They'd made a little shrine, actually, with a big sheet of white linen, a couple of bits of bamboo and some string. They'd put some candles at each end of the body under this improvised shroud, and they had some incense around it, and people were just throwing money on it as they went past. And this guy said, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, he's died in the street. It's coroner's case automatically. He said, well, do something, doctor. I said, I can't. I'm a foreign national. And if I get involved with the coroner's case here, the shit can hit the fan. So in this moment of weakness, I produced my wallet and I took out 100 rupees. And I just gave it to him. I said, there's 100 rupees, mate. Go and do something. And as I came back, I thought to myself, I must be mad. I have lost my presence of mind. This Anglo-Indian I've never seen before comes up to me, tells me he's a mate of Morris Jelly, takes me down to see the body. And just on that basis, I give him 100 rupees and tell him to go and do something. I mean, I'm going to have half the bloody Anglo-Indians in Calcutta coming up asking me for money because they're the best friends of Morris Jelly. I mean, that guy is probably on a train halfway to Bihar by now. The following day at the clinic, this man to whom I gave 100 rupees just appears. I looked up and I said, what do you want? He said, oh, last night you gave me some money. I said, yes. He said, well, I brought you your change. I was completely stunned. I said, what? He said, I've got your change. I said, oh, my change? He said, what do you mean? He said, well, I went down to the police station, they wouldn't listen to me. So I went off and I bought a packet of cigarettes for 7 rupees, and I took the cigarettes down. I gave it to one of the police sergeants, and he took the cigarettes, and he came down and he dealt with the body, and here's the change, 93 rupees. And I said, oh. I was rather stunned. I said, look, mate, I gave you that money to do something for Morris. I really can't take it back. Go and get together with your mates and Morris's drinking mates and go out and buy a few bottles of Bungler and have a wake on Morris. That's my advice. Just go and have a wake. He looked at me rather perplexed and he said, oh, no, I can't do that. I said, well, yeah, go and have a wake. Take the money and have a wake. He said, oh, no. He said, I'll feed the poor. I'll go and get some food and I'll feed the poor. I looked at him and I said, mate, you are the poor. He said, oh, yeah. A few days later, when Patrick Gomes and I was running around trying to get coffins and trucks and deal with this body that we've had to get out from the coroner and so forth, we heard that the local community was having a little passing the hat around for a little tribute to Morris. We'd heard that the man from whom he used to buy his bungalow put in 10 rupees. the man from whom he used to buy his beaties had put in 5 rupees, and so on and so forth, and getting this floral tribute together. Then news came back to me that someone had given 93 rupees. It just kept haunting me, there's 93 rupees. It was eventually paid into Morris's floral tribute, which was huge. I mean, the grave was just piled up with flowers.